Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is episode 9 of the In the Rye podcast with Curt, Fletcher. Today, my guest is going to be Jay Dee, who is a comedian and he's also an actor. He's been in 30 feature films, at least 30. He's done tons of commercials. As a comedian, he toured all 50 states, got to open for Dave Chappelle, and he's just a super cool guy. So let's talk to Jay Dee. Jay Dee.
Curt Fletcher.
What's up? Why are you wearing a mask? Where are you at?
Curt, I'm wearing a mask because I care about my health. All right?
Understood.
Under fucking.
Hell yeah, buddy. Are you in Dallas right now?
Yes, I am. I'm at my apartment.
Cool. How do you like Dallas? You've been there a few years now, right?
I've been here for like almost two.
Almost two? Okay. Yeah, because I think I was performing out there right around the time you moved out there, right?
Yeah, you were at Hyenas in Plano.
Yeah.
Back when people did stand-up comedy at places, right?
Yeah, I remember that. That was wild.
That was a fun night.
How's the acting business going right now? Are you able to film anything?
Actually, yeah. It's been kind of touch and go between Oklahoma and Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Oklahoma last week for a couple of projects. I did a commercial for Mama Rosa's. They're off of Lake Hefner in Oklahoma City.
Oh, yeah.
And I did a Lifetime movie.
Wow, no.
Yeah, it's called Fatal Frenemies. So
I'm going to have to let my sister know about that. She watches the shit out of the Lifetime.
Yeah, if that doesn't sound dramatic, I don't know.
Fatal Frenemies. I like it.
So I play the role of a cop in that thing. So.
Cool. Awesome, man. So do you have an agent in Texas and Oklahoma? Is that how that works? Okay.
I do.
So it's kind of like a fishing license. You have to get one in each state?
Yeah, and it costs my dignity, pretty much. That's that's the price. But you can get that at Walmart, so.
Yeah.
I have. I'm represented by Linda McAllister Talent Agency in Texas and Magnet Talent Agency in Oklahoma.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Where do you do most of your work? Is it mostly in Texas, or? Because I noticed you're in Oklahoma quite a bit, though.
Right, and that's how that works. I moved to Texas because it's a bigger market, and once I did that, Oklahoma was like, you know what? We'd love to have you act in all of our stuff.
Yeah.
So. Really, it varies on the season. Sometimes I am hooked up in Texas all the time, and sometimes it's Oklahoma. I'm just glad that this particular location I am, it's just like a 3-hour drive to Oklahoma. So not a big deal.
Oh yeah, it's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you in? Where are you at right now?
I moved back to Albuquerque.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm trying to get an agent here, so I can get into some acting too.
Oh, right on. Well, yeah.
They film a lot of stuff here, so.
They definitely do. Hit me up after this, and we'll talk some. I'll kind of get you in touch with some people.
Cool. I appreciate it, man.
Get that going, because I can tell you this much is, there's definitely a lot going on out there, and there's really not a lot of actors in Albuquerque. I know a lot of times they'll get people from LA come over since it's not too far away.
Yeah. Well, actually, a lot of actors from Albuquerque have moved to LA. That I know of, anyway.
What was the name of that pizza joint that you and I ate at?
Oh, Dion's.
What's it?
Dion's.
Yeah. Man. That was some great pizza. I know that's the last time I've been out there in Albuquerque was when I was blazing through town on some little weird tour I was doing, and I was just thinking it's actually crazy. I've ran into you in different areas of the country. I remember.
Oh yeah. One time
I did was I started in North Dakota, and I ran into you and I think
Patrick Candelaria.
Yeah, you guys were working on I think it was maybe a Comedy Express, and I was doing something for South Bay at the time, and we just did that kind of.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, we had a blizzard. I remember.
Yeah.
I remember actually because we were at this gas station and the power went out. So they're giving away all the free breakfast sandwiches, and we're like, yes.
Oh, wow.
And then I saw a truck pulling a beer truck up the hill, I was like, man, that guy sure loves beer.
I love it. Yeah, follow that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, we weren't in the blizzard for too long. I think it was just that town we were in. I don't even remember which one it was. Like just outside of Bismarck, I think.
Okay, yeah.
And then right as soon as we left Bismarck, it was fine.
I ran into it in Wyoming, that particular run.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was so weird. That whole trip, I was such a tourist, I felt like, because I'd never been on the road before. And I was like that guy where I had my shitty cell phone out, like, there's a mountain, you know, and there's like 60 pictures of a mountain.
Yeah.
And I remember the comic I was working with was like, yeah, there's a mountain.
Just some guy who's already seen it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you ended up doing all 50 states, man. That's pretty impressive.
Did. Thank you. And honestly, it all started with that tour because that particular one, I did 4 states and 5 cities, and it just seemed like a lot. And I was like, man, I want to set a goal of trying to do all 50, just to even see the entire country. I thought would be pretty cool because at that time, before I started stand-up, I'd probably been to like 5 states ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I hadn't really traveled that much. And
yeah, I guess I'm kind of the same way. I grew up in Iowa, and we never really went anywhere. And then I moved to New Mexico, and you know, I didn't really travel from here either until I started doing stand-up. You know.
Yeah.
And I had the goal of doing all 50 states too. You know, because I wanted to see the country. And then the more I heard about New Jersey, I was like, I could do without New Jersey.
Right. There's a lot of states I can do without. I've learned that. There was, man, you know, they talk about like paying your dues and all that. And I definitely took a lot of gigs where it's like, hey, would you like to perform for $100 at a baby shower? I was like, yeah, I would.
Still do shit like that.
Yeah. It's funny too, like the topic of like shows like that. I kind of feel like anytime I started to really feel good about myself and where my career was headed, something like that would happen. Like, I remember one night I did Caroline's and Gotham on the same night.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, man, you know, I was performing in front of Letterman's bookers. And I really felt like I was arriving on the scene. And honestly, that next Saturday I was booked at a baby shower at a woman's house in front of her fireplace with no microphone. So,
were Letterman's bookers there?
Yeah, well, if they would have been, they would have been equally as impressed by what I wasn't bringing to the table that night. Yeah, it's funny because I start in my mind, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to say, well, Booker this is, but I'm like, listen, maybe I just need to keep these shitty bookers on standby in case I have to work for them again.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Not burning that bridge.
What was the state that you performed in that you're kind of surprised by? Like that you had never really known about or something?
That's I'll tell you what, the very first time I performed in Hollywood, which was my very first gig in California, I was very surprised. And I'll tell you why. I went way before I was ready. I remember when I was just a edgy open micer.
I remember those days.
Yeah, I wish you didn't. I would have so many comics that would come through town and they'd be like, you know what? You belong in LA. They'll love you there. Oklahoma is shit. They don't appreciate you. And I was like, yeah, that's it. And I went to Hollywood. I talked my way into an all-headliner showcase at the Ha Ha on Lankershim. And I had people opening for me, that's shitty. I had people going on before me that like had Showtime specials, were legit like Hollywood people. And I remember going up there, I was like, man, I'm going guns blazing. And they did not love me, like at all. So I went out there feeling like this is my shot, this is my moment. Keep in mind, like I've only been open micing like for like a year or 2 years or something like that. So I had no business on this all headliner showcase. And I actually got heckled by the MC.
Oh, wow.
And I walked away with a good start with comedy. A lot of sadness and disappointment. So there you go.
Yeah. I'm actually glad I knew you from those open mic days because you've worked your ass off since then, and I've got to see how much you've worked, since then. Because you really like fucking went all in, and a lot of people don't do that. And like I could tell, like right when I met you, like this guy wants to be someone, and because you're always there bugging all the comics and shit.
Yeah, I was when I met you. Would have been in 2007.
Yeah,
I believe it was at the Looney Bin in Tulsa, my home club. And I was so immersed in comedy that I would go every single night. And that's when they had Sunday shows as well. So I just wanted to soak up as much and learn as much as I could. Because it's funny when you first start comedy, how you think you have it figured out. You just think you're just going to go out there and be awesome. And like, oh, this is my big break, kids. All right, I'm going to be somebody. Buckle up. And it was never that way. It was just a lot of like, you're not good enough.
Yeah.
And I had a very small pool to deal with. I had the Tulsa comedy scene. There weren't very many people doing comedy. And still, I remember Beth at the time, who was running the club, sweet, great woman. She just like, you're not ready. And she was right.
Mm-hmm.
She was right.
Well, I'm glad she told you at least, because I think young comics need to hear shit like that, so they don't get a big head or anything like that. So, did that help you a lot? Like, kind of make you step back a little bit and think, like, all right, I need to change some shit around.
It definitely was helpful because I was always writing. I was going nonstop. I would record myself, which that's always the advice I give to anybody that's
absolutely
stand up, because the camera is never going to lie. There's so many times where I was like, you know what? Knocked it out the park tonight. I did. And I look at the tape. I was like, nope. Not even close. And so I use that as a learning experience. But what I'll say is I think it's kind of like pilots and flying and how many hours they have flying and how they're rated. I think the more times you can get on stage, the more experience you can get, inherently the better you're going to become.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're going to learn about a lot of what not to do. And I know even watching you from back then, it all evolves, whether it's the material, whether it's the stage presence, whether it's the cadence or the timing. It's always a work in progress. And I'll be the first to admit, I'll be honest with you, which implies all this was lies before, is there were different moments in my career, if you want to call it that, where I would achieve something really cool, and then I would just kind of coast, and I would feel like I can get away with that. And then my next show in front of people, I was wrong, So it really is something that's constant work. And I think no matter how far we've been into the game, we're just always learning. We should always be trying to improve.
Oh, absolutely, man. I've been doing this 19 years, and I'm still learning shit.
Wow.
Still working on stuff. Yeah, it's crazy.
And I remember, so you were actually at Laughs there in Albuquerque, right?
That's where I started.
With Russ Rivas running that place back then.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what has been, we'll just flip the script here.
Yeah.
Let's just for fun, let's talk about our shittiest shows ever. What's your shittiest show?
Oh, goodness. Well, like you said, like recording yourself, it could go like where you think, you killed, and then you go back and listen to it and you're like, all right, maybe I didn't. I had the opposite happen. Like I was performing in Oklahoma City a few years ago, or actually it was last year. And
were they still smoking back then?
No.
Okay.
But the Friday late show, like I just had a weird mindset going into that show, and it didn't go well for me at all. Like it just from the start, I had weird energy, and a lot of times I feed off the crowd's energy, and they didn't have good energy. So I was just like totally off and just eating a huge pile of shit. Like, it just felt terrible. I could hear the comedians laughing because they knew that I was eating shit. So I started eating shit, and then I just started doing jokes that would make myself laugh. Like, I didn't care about the audience at that point. And then so I did a few jokes that were like super dirty, like, and then I told the crowd, I was like, I told those jokes because I'm sick of your shit. And then did the rest of the set. Didn't go well. But then the next day, I had recorded it on my phone. You know, I always go back and listen to the audio. And I was listening to it, and I was like, I was actually getting pretty decent laughs. And I don't know why I thought I was bombing so hard. Like I felt like while I was on stage, it felt like one of the worst shows ever. You know what I mean? But even after the show, like, some guy was like, dude, that was fucking hilarious, man. And I was just like, I don't know why I felt so weird about it. But going back and listening, like, helped a lot, you know? And then, like, the first show, Saturday, of course, was, like, the best show I'd done all year. So
nice.
It's, like, totally erases it. But, I mean, that wasn't the shittiest show I've ever done. I just wanted to say that. Go back and listen to your tape of you bombing, and maybe it's not so bad.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's funny, too, because I remember going through time about, like, how much time I would have or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I remember a comic once told me, he's like, it's not how much time you have. It's how much time you have when they hate you.
Oh, yeah.
And that really is a thing. That is a thing. Because I have blazed through a 45-minute set in, like, 17 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Like, all this silence is uncomfortable over here. Let's just keep this moving. Just keep it moving.
Yeah, just keep talking.
Oh, kind of like this podcast.
I know, and we're only 16 minutes in. No, I got used to silence. Like, I got comfortable with silence. I think that helps a lot, especially when you're bombing. Because then you could still pause and just make it as awkward as possible. You can even pause longer. So
I do like in your set where you have that moment where you ask a question and then you pause and you're like, hello? You know, I just always love that. Because the audience is like, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because they think it's a rhetorical question. So then they're just like, are we supposed to answer?
Was that the, have you guys seen the World's Greatest Dad shirt? Is that what
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and usually people just kind of stare.
Right.
So I'm like, hello? What's the shittiest gig you've ever done?
You know, there's a laundry list of them.
I bet.
You've seen me. Come on. It is kind of funny because I was thinking about that. There's been so many awful shows that I've done all over the country. Mm-hmm. And I think definitely one of the ones that really stood out to me was, at least I talk about it often enough just with friends, because I like to revisit traumatic times. It was my gig in Greenville, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. So what's interesting with that is historically, so I hate using the word headline sometimes because it's like, okay, we're at a bar and grill. You're like, really? You know, so this was it was a fun venue, a large venue in Greenville, Mississippi. And I had closed out the show multiple times. They loved me out there. They kept requesting me. And one time I go out there and I was building a tour. And I had typically performed on Friday nights out there. And this particular leg of the tour, I was only open on a Saturday. I was like, hey, could I perform out there on Saturday? And they're like, we'd really prefer Friday because, you know, Saturday is when college games are on. I was like, well, I'm just telling you this is the only time I'm open. They're like, deal. I was like, okay, whatever. And so I go there on a Saturday, and this is in Mississippi, and this particular college game is towards the end of the season. It's Alabama versus LSU. Mm-hmm. It's like number 1 versus number 2. And there is a side room where there's like 125 people easy, just stacked up watching this game on a projector screen.
Oh, yeah.
There is my room that I'm performing in that has approximately 12 people, probably 11 there by accident. And then there's a patio area where there's like 40, 50 people. And so I have to close the show out, and I'm doing my timing. I was like, all right, I don't have, 2 hours worth of material. I've only got 45 minutes to an hour. So I'm purposely gauging that. And that kind of ties in with what I just said, like how much time do you have when they hate you?
Uh-huh.
And I don't want to say they hated me. What I'll say is there was a lot of distraction because of the games. There was a lot of shouting and hooting and hollering. And the people that were there were just, they say laughter is infectious. I think silence is infectious.
Oh, so absolutely, yeah.
Especially when you got like 11, 12 people, like nobody wants to be the first one to laugh. So they're just staring at me like I'm performing in a different language. And I remember at one point I was getting so frustrated that I was just like calling the game. Like I was like saying what was happening at the stage to the left of me. I was like, okay, yeah. It's like Alabama just got a first down. Oh, fun fact also is the owner was from Louisiana. And so I was like, oh, this will get him, because I'll say things that are positive about Louisiana, which comes to find out that's just her. The people of Mississippi hate Louisiana. So I was like, that's cool. So there was that. But also they hired a band that night.
Yeah.
And so the band didn't even know that I was going to be appearing because they were already booked at a certain time. And since the show had run a little bit late initially, I was already eating shit. I did my thing where I laid on the ground. I was just like, I'm going to give you guys the same energy you're giving me, that kind of shit. And I got played off the stage by a band. Yeah. That happened.
Damn.
And so I remember driving to my hotel that night, and I bought a 6-pack of Southern Pecan beer. And I remember just pounding those. I was like, you know what? Maybe this isn't the business for me. Maybe I'll just never do comedy again, because this is an awful feeling. Eating shit for like 45 minutes, getting played off by a band. Mm-hmm. It's like, is this where I'm at in my career? And I made myself sleep on it. And when I woke up, I was like, okay, you know what? I've done shit gigs before. I'll do many shit gigs from here on. It'll get better from here. And so I stuck with it. But that one resonated with me more than any other. And I think the situation is that I failed to take a step back and look at the environment. A lot of times we'll blame ourselves as entertainers because, in all fairness, we have to be dynamic. We have to be able to go out there no matter what's going on, read our audience, adjust with our audience, connect with our audience. And that was not a good environment, but I still felt like I didn't connect with my audience as well as I would have liked to. And sometimes they say you're as good as your last show. And I was like, I got to get another one in me, like, quick.
Yeah. Man, that's rough.
And there's been so many crazy, awful shows all over.
Yeah, but you gotta open for Dave Chappelle, though.
That was the best night of comedy I've had in my entire life.
Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah, because I remember when you started, because a lot of times I could go to an open mic and close my eyes and I could be like, all right, this guy wants to be this guy. And for you, it was always Dave Chappelle. I was like, all right, JD wants to be Dave Chappelle. And like, you didn't shy away from it either. You always talked about Dave Chappelle. So I was like, all right, this guy wants to be Dave Chappelle. And then you got to open for him. Like, tell me about that, man. Like, how awesome is that?
So I've known Dave for years and years and years. A long story with that. I'll try to make it a quick version. Basically, in the old days of the internet, there was a Dave Chappelle forum that he didn't own. His lawyers had bought DaveChappelle.com and just parked the domain. Somebody else bought the site with like a missing P. And due to how algorithms work, it was just when people go searching for Dave Chappelle, that was the top thing.
Yep.
So I was on that forum all the time. This guy's like, hey, would you like to run it? I said, sure. And I would post sketch ideas and things like that in there. And I ended up doing my own sketch comedy show at the time as well. I went to see Dave at the Improv around that same time in Houston. And he would pop onto the site, onto the Dave Chappelle forums. And so when I met him, he's just like, hey, I've been reading your stuff. It's very funny. Get in contact with my people here and I will, pay you for your sketches. I was like, cool. So I did that. I sent 3 envelopes all in one package. The first one was a cover letter, just, some bullshit like, thank you so much for the opportunity. Kiss ass, kiss ass. And there's a picture of me and Dave and a picture of me and his manager at the time. And the second envelope was my sketches typed out. And the third envelope was my sketches written on toilet paper. And in the cover letter, I said something to the effect of, if you don't like my sketches, feel free to wipe your ass with them. And that was my hook. I immediately heard back. They were interested. They wanted more sketches. So I sent like a total of like 7 sketches, something like that, 5 to 7 sketches. And so then him and I were in contact constantly from that point forward. I've been talking to him over the years about trying to come to Tulsa. And I remember the very first time I tried to talk him into going into Tulsa. I was in Yellow Springs, Ohio, where he lives. We were hanging out. And I said, Dave, you got to come to Tulsa to do a show sometime. And he said, I remember the last time I performed in Tulsa. I was with Carrot Top. Jay Dee, do you like Carrot Top? And I was like, no, Dave, I don't really like Carrot Top. He's like, I like Carrot Top. I was like, fuck. So that's how that started. And he was impressed by all the prop stuff that Carrot Top can do. Oh, yeah. And every time I would see Dave, I'd try to talk him into coming to Tulsa. He finally came to Tulsa, reached out to me, asked me to open for him, which was like ridiculous because it's a theater. And I've been going to that theater since I was 4 years old. I saw Sesame Street live there as a child. I just remember how huge it was. And flash forward to that particular night, I had been practicing all day with a like fake microphone to my furniture, trying to get my set all tight and everything. And there's a difference between performing in front of your furniture and 2,800 people. And what I will say is I was more nervous than I've ever been in my life because I've eaten shit behind microphones in Tulsa for years. But if you eat shit in front of like 2,800 people, like the Tulsa world's going to write about it. You know what I mean? Like people. And at any rate, the show went fantastic. It was a very intoxicating experience because there's nothing like hearing 2,800 people laughing all at once. And
that fucks up your timing, huh?
It did and it didn't. It basically allowed that extra buffer for time. So I had more material that I was going to do and I didn't because I'm like, I'm going to write this like they're not going to laugh. And so it really helped out because I was just able to soak it up. And I felt very, very in that moment, like I was almost watching myself. And I recorded my set with a shitty grainy camera where you can't see anything. But that started off so much for me. And of course I talk about like the whole comedy gods thing, like if your ego starts getting, because let me tell you what, like I felt on top of the world. The very next Friday night I performed, I headlined at a pizza place in Arkansas. So, there's always a balance. But Dave was my comedy mentor when I first started. He has helped guide me with a lot of advice. And honestly, I wouldn't be on this podcast with you if it wasn't for Dave Chappelle.
That's cool, man. Well, thanks, Dave. I'll have to send him a thank you note.
Yeah, do that.
He's going to be on the podcast at some point.
We should do it. We should get him on. We'll see what his Jay Dee impression sounds like. That'd be great. Yeah. It's just a series of shitty jokes. That's all it's going to be. Man, so when are you performing next? Tomorrow
night, Colorado Springs.
Are you at Looney's?
Yep. Co-headlining. Nice. Yeah.
Nice. Well, congrats on that, man.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I'm excited, man. My September's actually pretty full. All my weekends are booked, so looking forward to get back on the road,
I like it.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. Are you planning on doing stand-up anymore? Or
well, done? I could kind of cut out the middleman and just cry a lot. That's
yeah.
kind of,
Yeah, you got a nice place to cry.
Yeah. Yeah. My savings.
So what got you into acting? Was it when you were doing sketch comedy? Were you kind of like, is that when you started maybe getting into acting a little more?
I honestly got into acting by accident. It was because of stand-up comedy. So I was really trying to perform all the time, anywhere I could. There were certain theaters and certain venues where, and you can relate to this, you'll know where they're headliners. Some of these old-timey booker guys are like, you know, if you want to headline this room, kid, you got to have TV credits.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And so this back in 2011.
Even if it's a Lifetime movie?
Right. Does that count? I'll tell you that quick story. So that's the idea. Is why I got into film is because so I could do certain rooms because they wouldn't allow me to otherwise. There was a movie that was a Ben Affleck movie, and Chris Freihofer was like the big casting director in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I know who he is.
He's one that was casting this thing. And so I showed up to like this open casting call because I didn't know anything. And so I wait in line with a bunch of people, have my headshot and my comedy resume. And I'm like, well, I'm prepared. See, all these other people, these commenters are they've got their Nutrigrain bars and I've got this here. Look at me. And I get there and somebody takes it all polite and just tosses it like in a pile. And they just take like a picture of me and they're like, okay, you're good. And I was like, hey, hold on there. We're gonna talk about anything? And they're like, no, we're good. So I sent a follow-up email to Chris. I was like, hey, very professional. I was like, hey, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for looking at my stuff. I really would love to be in your film. And I didn't hear anything. And I sent a follow-up email like 2 weeks later. I was like, hey, following up, just want to say thanks again for the opportunity. Really looking forward to the possibility of working with you. Nothing. And so then I just swung for the fences. I created a fake resume. And the resume was just insane. I don't remember exactly everything I said, but I said something like, well, I'm 26 years old. I learned to walk at age 1, so I have 25 years experience walking and standing, which would be perfect for your movie in the background, perhaps. Also, I've been married for 7 years, so I'm used to being bossed around and not asking questions. I said a bunch of shit like that. And immediately I got a notice from him to be booked as a background for a movie. And then I got on this email list for his open casting calls. And that's how that started. And I think what I'll say with that is any advice to anybody out there who's struggling to get seen, whatever capacity, whether it's comedy or movies, or just anything in life. Honestly, I'm a firm believer of create your own path. I tried basically everything I've ever succeeded in. I had to go do crazy shit. To get seen, to get noticed, because they're used to seeing that same old template from everybody. And be yourself, be authentic, be unorthodox, and get people's attention that way. So that's my advice to anybody out there: create your own path.
Hell yeah! Actually, I got into acting. This guy had seen me perform at open mic, and then he approached me and said, hey, I wrote a movie, and I wrote a character based on your stand-up character.
Okay.
Would you like to be in it?
Your stand-up character. Like,
yeah.
Bitch, that's me.
And I was like, holy shit. I'm not an actor, but yeah, I'll take a look at it. So he gives me the script, and I was going on my first, it was one of my first road gigs, actually, like to Looney's in Colorado Springs. So I had this script with me, and I read it over the weekend and stuff, and it's like, man, I'm not going to be able to memorize these lines at all. But so I went in for like the table read and stuff, and it seemed like it was going to be cool, you know, like everyone was all into it and stuff. And then the guy called me afterwards, and I was like, shit, he's probably cutting me from the movie. But he calls me and he says, yeah, the other actors aren't really working out. Like, I didn't like how they did the table read and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is cut their parts out of the movie, which was like, their parts were like 2/3 of the movie, and me and this one girl, our part was like 1/3 of the movie. So he goes, I'm going to cut that part out of the movie, and I'm going to focus on your part with the girl, and we're going to make that into the movie. And I was like, holy shit. So now I'm like the star of the movie.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to have a hard time memorizing these lines. He's like, that's fine. He's like, I'm just going to kind of put like an outline together, and then we can just kind of wing it when we film it. And I was like, okay, cool. That works awesome. So he had like basic things that he wanted, and then he kind of just let me like freestyle. So it was pretty cool. I gotta come up with some of my own shit while I was filming and stuff. So it was pretty cool, man. It was a fun experience.
That's really awesome, man. That's really awesome. So have you seen the final product yet?
Oh yeah, we had a big screening at Laughs, and man, we had about 150 people show up. It was nuts. Like I didn't even think to charge people money. I was like excited. Like it's like it'd be cool if we get 20 people in here. We ended up getting 150 people in there. I ended up doing stand-up before the viewing, so I did like a 20-minute set. Then we had the viewing. It went awesome. Then we had like an after party at this restaurant. Like I was like, God damn it, I should have charged money.
I want to see your movie. Let's plug it. Let's plug your movie here.
Okay, yeah, it's mismatch.com.
Mismatch.com?
Yeah, I've got it on my computer. We got into some film festivals locally and stuff.
Sure.
It was pretty cool. I'll have to show it to you sometime.
Party at your computer in Albuquerque. Everybody, we're going.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
And he's charging this time.
Yep, $3 a head.
And also, you didn't you have some involvement with the film with Dante?
I was supposed to. We never raised enough funds to film it. I was supposed to play a homeless guy in what was the movie called? It's like Nuclear Zombies from Outer Space or from Area 51, something like that. It was something crazy. Right. But I was like, yeah, I can play a homeless dude, you know? Just grow out my beard a little bit.
Sure.
Actually, I did play a homeless guy in a short independent film here in Albuquerque. That was pretty fun.
Nice. Man, it's funny. I remember, let's see if you remember this, man. Years and years and years ago, you, Dante, and myself, we performed a week at the Looney Bin in Tulsa. Mm-hmm. And back then, how things worked was it was the MC's job to be a slave, pretty much. So my job was to pick you guys up.
And take us to Famous Dave's.
Yes. And so what I'll preface this with is that Beth, who ran the club that we talked about earlier, I always was trying to make sure I was in her good graces because, in all fairness, I fucked up a lot. You saw me back then. Come on. Oh, yeah. And so I was always wanting to stay in her good graces. And so as far as she's concerned, I have a job. Pick you guys up, make it to the show with plenty of time. And I remember I show up like probably an hour before showtime. I was like, all right, guys. I thought maybe we'd hang out for like 30 minutes and then get to the club 30 minutes before the show. Standard for me. And I remember Dante's like, hey, let's get some food, guys. What do you say? And I was like, oh man, yeah, I don't think we're gonna have time, Dante. He's like, we'll make it work. Let's go to Famous Dave's. Just take us to Famous Dave's. I was like, in my mind, I was like, I've got Beth, who runs the club, and I have the headliner here, you know? So I was like, all right, Dante, let's go to Famous Dave's. And if I remember right, I think he ordered for all of us. It was like half of a chicken and some.
There's a lot of food.
It was. And we had to scarf this stuff down super fast. Mm-hmm. I remember Dante was like, when he was talking to the server, he's like, my name's Dante. I did Last Comic Standing. Listen, from LA. And listen, we're doing a show tonight, so we need you to go pretty quick. And I was like, oh, fuck. So we eat crazy fast, a lot of food. I remember when we pulled in and we walked into the club, like the show was about to start in 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I remember Beth was just standing there like this. And I was just, as soon as we walked in, I was like, Dante is behind this. And I went to the stage, and I remember feeling so nervous because, so I had a stomach full of food. My heart was racing because I was afraid that I was never going to perform there again because Beth wouldn't forgive me for some situation that wasn't really my fault. And I was really in my head a lot back then. I remember I was like, oh man, I think I'm going to throw up. And I remember, like, you know, my heart racing for that whole, you know, like, welcome to the stage, clubs and colleges all across the country, Jay Dee. I'm like, oh yeah, clubs and colleges all across the country. Like, more like sports bars across the street, whatever. And so I I remember getting up there to do my set, and I was in autopilot mode, and I started to feel like, oh yeah, I am gonna throw up for sure. And I remember trying to prep in my mind, like when it happens, what I'm going to say to the audience, just to try to keep the show moving along. So I thought like, I was going to say something like, and that's my impression of Nicole Richie, everyone. All right, just keep it going. And I remember I literally dry heaved on stage at least 3 times, but I never did throw up. And I vowed from that night forward to never eat before a show. And I held true to that for a while. And then I was doing a gig in Springfield, Missouri, and I felt like real confident or whatever. I was like, oh yeah, I'll eat a big cheeseburger before. I'm in a different spot in my career. I'm featuring. So I eat this big burger and I go on stage, like the same thing. Like I start doing the dry heave thing. I was like, never again. And then when I did the show with Dave Chappelle, he ordered barbecue before the show from a place called Albert G's. I want to say it is. And and he's like, Jay Dee, do you eat barbecue? And I was like, oh yeah, Dave, I love barbecue. He's like, all right, I'm ordering some barbecue before the show. And I was like, Dave, I can't eat before a show. It makes me too nervous. He's like, you can't eat barbecue before a show yet. I was like, okay, and then I still didn't eat before the show because like I didn't even have any food in my stomach to throw up, and I still felt like I was gonna throw up before that show. I remember taking a peek out during the pre-show business. I wanted to take a peek outside of this curtain, and I just saw a sea of people, and I could feel my heart and my stomach and my throat. I was like, I am so glad I didn't eat that barbecue.
Oh yeah. I almost shit my pants on stage a few years ago. It was 3 years ago yesterday, because I was performing at the Des Moines Funny Bone. I was hosting, and my cousin and I'd never been to an Iowa football game before in my life, and my cousin's like, all right, we got to make it happen. And so we get up at 6 a.m, drive to Iowa City from Des Moines, couple-hour drive. Football game started at 10, I believe.
Okay.
So we go to the game, and It's awesome. Head back to Des Moines, and I hadn't eaten all day, like anything except like some M&Ms or something like that. So I get together with some of my other cousins at this pizza place by the Funny Bone before the show.
Yeah.
And I don't like to eat usually before a show either, but I hadn't eaten all day, so I was like, I don't really have a choice, So I eat this pizza, and then just like right before showtime, my stomach's like, all right, you have to take a shit, dude. And I'm like, no, I got like 3 minutes till showtime. There's no way that's going to happen. So I was like, man, I might shit my pants on stage. So I was kind of in a situation like you, like, what am I going to do? Like, luckily it's only like a 10 to 12 minute set or something like that. And like, the adrenaline when you're up there kind of like focuses your attention on other shit, luckily. So, so I didn't shit my pants on stage, which I was happy about. So right as soon as I brought it to feature act, I was like, all right, I gotta run to the bathroom. And it sucks at the comedy club because you always go into the bathroom with people who have just watched you perform.
Right. Yeah, that does.
But I got lucky. Like there was nobody in there when I was done or anything. So I was like, all right, cool.
Well, and it's kind of funny how sometimes people won't treat you like you're just a regular person. Like I remember I was doing a show at a sports bar, and there's a table really close to me and lower, and they were rich people, so they order like every kind of appetizer, and they really weren't interested in eating it. Mm-hmm. And then at one point a bunch of them left because that's what I do in my shows. Welcome. So at one point I was like, all right, so here's the thing. These people left, there's all these appetizers, I'm hungry. And I just started eating the food because I felt that comfortable. And I remember a guy came up to me after the show. He's like, you know what? I thought you were really great. Until I saw you eating other people's food, and I kind of changed my mind about you. I was like, it happens. Actually, a question for you, just from the MC side of things. Did you ever run into a situation where you were not ready for the comic to come off stage? Like you weren't near the stage when the comic needed to come off stage?
Oh, actually, I've got a story that was actually in a book. Yeah, it was so funny. So I was performing at Laughs years ago. I was also the fry cook at Laughs. So I would perform. I would start out in the kitchen making some food. Then once the show started, I would go out and do my 15 minutes, bring up the feature act. Feature act always does 30. There's a clock right across from me, so I know when they're going to get off stage. So I can go back in the kitchen, work for 25 minutes, go back out there. So one night I'm performing, and one of the waitresses comes back in the kitchen, and she says, "Hey, there's no one on stage." And I was like, he's got like 15 minutes left. But I wasn't going to be like, well, what's he doing? Blah, blah, blah. I just threw off my apron and ran out there. So there's no one on stage at all. So I go out there and I start telling jokes again. And I'm just like, I have no clue what the fuck's going on. And then I see the headliner's Jackie Cation, and she motioned to me that she was ready to come on stage. So I brought her up. And so I'm walking back to the kitchen, and the feature act was a guy named George McKelvey. And George is like a legend in comedy. Like if you look him up on YouTube, he's got a music video from the 1960s. But he was the one that helped Steve Martin get his career going in comedy. Paid him his first comedy gig. But yeah, George. But at this point, George was like in his 70s. Okay. And so I'm walking back to the kitchen, and George is walking out of the.
Know better. Just saying.
Yeah. So, well, he comes out of the bathroom as I'm walking back to the kitchen, and he goes, "Sorry about that. I almost shit my pants." And I was like, "It's all good, buddy," you know. And then so it's funny. James Zingelman calls me one day. James is a comedian and a hypnotist from Albuquerque. He lives in Denver now. But he goes, he's like, "Hey, tell me if this sounds familiar. I'm reading a book called How Not to Suck as an MC." And I'm like, "Oh, shit." And so he reads that story to me, and it's written by Jackie Cation. Like, she wasn't shitting on me. She was, like, kind of shitting on the club, like, because they had me, like, cooking and emceeing and stuff like that. But she said I was actually funny in it, so I was like, that's cool. I was like, oh, yeah, that was me. And it's so funny because a couple years ago, Jackie and Lori Kilmartin have a podcast, and someone was telling me they're listening to it, and they're like, oh, hey, it was funny. Jackie was talking about this time she performed in Albuquerque, and the fry cook had the MC and all this, and then one time he didn't make it in time because the feature act like almost shit his pants or something like that. I was like, oh, that was me. She's like, really? I was like, yeah. And then like a couple of weeks later, I worked with Jackie again in Phoenix, so I told her, I was like, yeah, that was me. Wow. So yeah, it was pretty entertaining. You know, I felt bad for George because he was old, and but he was still funny. He had a bunch of those old guy jokes. It seemed like they were all take home jokes, but I mean, he was like 80 almost, so he probably wrote them all. You know.
Well, you know what though? I think there's a little bit of forgiveness that comes in with that situation. It's not like he left the stage to be a douchebag.
Yeah.
I ran into a situation at Laps in Tucson.
Yeah.
The feature act that particular week, he one particular night, he ditched the stage at least 10 minutes early, if not 15, because he just got a really good laugh, and he's like, all right, I'm out of here. And I went to the showroom because I would time it to where I would get to the showroom about maybe 5 minutes before they're done. Because sometimes I try to be nice guy or whatever. I think headliner was Robert Mack that week. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love Robert.
Very nice dude. And I may have been setting up his merch for his merch table or something. Oh, I sold merch that week too, which was a huge mistake. Like MC's, I guess it was MC. I don't really. That was back when Hoodie was there, so technically Hoodie sort of did MC things that night. But anyway. The fact of the matter was, this other comic, he jumps off the stage because he got a really good laugh, and it was 10 to 15 minutes early. I wasn't ready, and then he got some attitude with me, and like it's one of those where it's like, no, this is not gonna fly. This is not cool. And he's actually one of only 2 comedians ever that I've worked with, because we all there's some camaraderie in this industry, where we've all been there, we've all struggled, we've all eaten shit. Nobody really has room for true ego if they have come up the right way. I say the right way, paying your dues, whatever, like, just working. And this guy wasn't one of those guys. And I remember I was just thinking, like, this is one of 2 comics where, well, 3 comics that I would punch in the face. But luckily it didn't come to that. And later on at the end of the night, he apologized for not being fucking professional. So
that's cool.
What's interesting is I want to say his name, but he is that non-memorable to me where I don't even remember his name.
Oh, wow.
So I know you know him because you and I talked about it at one point. You're like, oh, he's actually pretty nice to me. I was like, good, because he should have been. Maybe he just had a bad night.
Yeah, I've only met like maybe a handful of comics I didn't like over the years. You
have him on your podcast and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we actually need to wrap up pretty soon because we just hit the 50-minute mark.
I
usually don't like to go over 45. Where can people find you, JD, like on social media and stuff?
The easiest way to say things is my website is jdcomedy.com, and I have links to my social media on there.
Okay, I'll put your website right above your little face there, so people will see it on the YouTube.
Thank you.
And then yeah, absolutely. All right, well, thanks for coming on and chatting, man. I'd love to have you on again. So we got tons more we could talk about. So.
Yeah, you know how this goes. We can talk shop all day, but
yeah.
I definitely wish you the best of luck and safe travels with your gig in Colorado Springs tomorrow. And next time you're through this area or something, man, give me a shout.
I definitely will, man.
Some food or something, man.
Yeah, I'd love to. All right, take care, buddy.
Best wishes out there.
Likewise. Thank you.
See you. Bye.
Cool. That was a lot of fun talking to JD. Thanks for everyone who tunes into the podcast. Also, my schedule's a little off, so it's been a little over a week since I posted one. Had some scheduling conflicts, so I always try to post these on Tuesday, but I just recorded this one, so I'm going to put it out today. But next week I'm going to have Alex Hooper on, which I'm super excited about. He was just on America's Got Talent. He almost made it to the semifinals, very close. So excited to have him on. I'm excited to hit the road this week. I'm going to Colorado Springs, performing at Looney's, which is the first club I ever performed on the road back in like 2003. And working with Rick Bryan this week, which will be a lot of fun. He's a guy from Denver. Super fun. I've actually got a lot of gigs coming up in September, which I'm excited about. I got to go to Cheyenne, Wyoming, Cortez, Colorado, and then I've got a show in Albuquerque on the 25th. I'm also doing an online show next Monday, the 7th. It's a fundraiser for the Surly Winch in Tucson. So I'll post that up on Facebook if anyone's interested in that. Even if you want to throw in some money to them, I'll post the link for that. Also, if you want to donate to my show, you can do that too on Venmo at Funny Fletcher. All right, that's it for this week. Thanks for tuning in. I always appreciate it. If you want to give reviews, that would be cool too. Because I like doing this. I don't know if I suck at it. So if I suck at it, let me know and tell me what I need to work on. But if you like it, tell me that too. All right, thanks everyone.